unfortunately, our first board meeting and our first workshop last Thursday was sparsely attended by the public. We liked having you here less, but
Thank you.
are you the public? So it is 7:29, and because this is on channel 1303 Spectrum and also live stream, we try to start it right at 7:30. Karen will do the hold, and we'll go from there. Oh, good, yeah. Is Karen still out there?
She's in the hallway.
Well, that's going to be tough for her to give me the high ho. High ho. We ready? Thank you. All right. Okay, let's open the April 15th, 2021 town board meeting. Say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Dolly, can you do roll, please?
Supervisor Flaherty?
Here.
Councilman Cahill?
Here.
Councilman Abbott?
Here.
Councilman Dean?
Here.
Town Attorney Genesi?
Present.
Okay, and our formal board meeting, the first of April, from April 1st, we have the minutes. I've looked them over, and I make a motion that we approve them.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Is there anybody, and Karen would know, I think, that was here to give any comment other than the public hearing? You have something to say that is outside of the scope of the rezoning issue of 230 Salt Road. Walt, if you wouldn't mind, I would like this gentleman to be able to go first.
Yep, I do.
We're going to switch up the seat. I beg your pardon?
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. If you, the first gentleman in the back, if you would come up to the podium and give your name and address, and just in 10 words or less, the topic that you are going to be discussing.
Name's Dave Maloney, live at 563 Galbraith Circle, Webster, New York. Do I have the honor of being the first person to address this?
You certainly do, and after we've been closed down to the public since about mid-March last year, this is exciting to finally get some life back in here.
Likewise. You might know what I'm not talking about, Untitled Chapter Bridge outlet. I've got about a 4-paragraph thing in there about what good is. You're ready to put it on track?
Yes.
You sure can. Do us all a favor if we could hear you a lot better.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty tired of working. The Roundabout Bay outlet needs to be walkable. It hasn't been possible to walk across the Roundabout Bay outlet in summertime. since the early 80s. It's past time to fix that situation. We need to be enabled year-round direct travel across the Untitled Bay outlet. Consider this. If you're walking onto one of the piers of the Untitled Bay outlet and require immediate medical attention and transportation to a hospital, they serve as well now in Webster as you are in Untitled. Time required to walk a round trip between Untitled and Webster is measured in hours. Now, not seconds like it was in the 80s. This has been studied. Look at the Untitled Bay Outlet Bridge feasibility study. It's on the town of Webster's website. It's also on the Untitled website. It's past time to make improvements there. The study recommends the most cost-effective solution. Raise the existing bridge up a few feet. Helps everyone. Pedestrians, motorists, cyclists, and off-season boaters as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're gonna have to give you a special award for being the first one in over a year.
I really prefer to just have the bridge fixed.
Okay. And then,
Yes.
Billy Bennett, please come on.
Chad Ferris out of that 501 Sherborne Road. We're just looking to put a shed on an easement.
He's on the agenda.
Well, there you have it, okay. Chad, you know what? I apologize, I should have been a little clearer. I was switching up the order of the open to the floor, each speaker allowed 5 minutes from the public hearing. Figuring anybody that was here, like this gentleman about the bridge, I figured they should go first because they might
sure.
be sitting here for a while if everybody else. So you're actually the second formal item after the public hearing.
Okay.
So you might want to get comfortable.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Now, before we start the public hearing, I wanted to just say that, well, I've already said, I think it's great that we got this many people on board. This is the way government should be. Informed community is a better community. I've said it many times. And I know that we're about to have Mr. Baker give a presentation from representing the developer who was looking at putting in Aberdeen Estates. And then each of you will get a chance who's here to talk about whether they're for it or against it. One thing I want to just make sure everybody knows is that apparently at the planning board meeting 8 days ago, because the agenda for the planning board was posted by law in the Webster Herald and also put on our website, various social media sites, people showed up at that meeting voicing their discontent with the thought that there was going to be a rezoning of the 70 acres on Salt Road. I was not in attendance at that meeting, but the feedback I got that was most of the discontent was the fact that in 2018, people were not aware that it got rezoned from large lot to R2. And I'm paraphrasing, this is just what I heard happened at the meeting, is that it wasn't so much about the R2 to R3 zone change in 2021, but the fact that they felt like, how could they not have been aware of this in 2018? Now, I went back and did some perfunctory research on this, because as you probably all know, I was not the town supervisor in 2018. In fact, we're honored to have the 14-year previous supervisor, Ron Nesbitt, in the crowd tonight, which I think is fantastic. The town board and the planning board in 2018 had 5 events, 5 board meetings that had the topic of this rezoning from large lot to R2 on it. They ranged between May 17th, when the town board passed a resolution to refer it to the planning board to see if the planning board would recommend such zone change. The planning board then heard that on June 21st. It went back to the town board to set a public hearing for it. The public hearing was ultimately set and done on August 2nd, and it was voted on August 2nd. Now, when I looked at that, it is almost exact the time frame and the number of meetings and the sequence of meetings from planning board and town board that is happening 3 years later on this. So I don't really know why people that were interested in this did not know this was going on in 2018. I do know this: the laws of the land, they may be antiquated. The fact that we as a municipality are mandated by law to post public hearings in a newspaper, we have to name that newspaper. It's the Webster Herald. Now that law, Charlie, to the best of my knowledge, has not changed in 50 plus years. Where we all could say that newspapers maybe are not the medium that people get their news from anymore. But that's the law. And we follow the law. And the board and Ron Nesbitt followed the law back in 2018. Now we also, I didn't do this research from 2018, but we tried within transparency and communicating to the citizens, put those board agendas on our social media pages and on the website. I've had some people ask me, because I have talked to several people on the phone and through email on this subject in the last couple of weeks. I pride myself on being very accessible to the public. So I've had a lot of conversations. In fact, Don, where's Don? I think it was Don Lucas.
Dean.
Did I talk to you?
Dean, yes.
Dean, I'm sorry, not Don, Dean. We talked on the phone for about 10 minutes the other day.
Maybe more, yeah.
Right. And I don't know, maybe we agreed to disagree or at the end of the day when you get up there, but it was important for me to reach out to the people that came to the planning board just to make sure I understood what their concerns were as we move forward in the discernment of this zoning change. And Dean, you were very helpful in that, all right? But one thing we talked about, because Dean, I think you're a contractor by trade, and this surprised me too, is that if the planning board is discerning a sketch plan or whatever, I think a letter has to go out to the residents of that proposed development that live within 300 feet of it. Thank you.
It brings it, I highlighted it. First class mail. And when he.
Hey, hold on. You're gonna get your chance to talk, believe me. I can't explain why this is, but there is no such mandate for a rezoning. Okay? There is no such mandate for a rezoning. Now, we did, because we're trying to err on the side of caution, we have some new signs that we just got made, hoping that we can both post planning board and zoning board of appeals actions, and also put signs out at the development so people see the signs. Remember, the newspaper, the website, the social media pages, posting on the site. Short of coming up to your house and knocking on the door, we're going to try to bend over backwards to let people know. I don't like to hear when people say, I didn't know. It's the worst thing I want to hear. Now, interestingly enough, what I think has happened also, and some of you might be here because there was a flyer that was distributed by a certain group here in Webster to houses around this development this week, that unfortunately was not accurate on a couple of different accounts. One, it said it was 35 acres that was being rezoned or potentially. It's actually 70. It showed a sketch of what the housing development would look like, but it didn't show a sketch of what the R2 development would look like. It just showed this proposed R3. And for people I've talked to that I've been able to explain the R2 versus R3 in this, the R3 with 22,000 square foot lots versus R2 with 28,000 square foot lots will have the same width lot of 100 feet. They will just have a depth of 220 feet versus 280 feet, which, as Walt will explain in a couple of minutes, was something that they showed and said, we can create a buffer around the east side where it has natural trees and things like that, and also potentially be able to create some buffer for the neighbors on the north and south. I would say that, but I'm not, I don't have a dog in the fight of emotion on this. The R3 zone change will create a better product for the neighbors, for green space, for everybody, than the R2. Now we can argue all day long, well the R2 should have never happened in 2018, I wasn't aware of it, but it did. That ship has sailed. It got switched from large lot to R2. So, to me, as you're going to see this, and if you keep an open mind to it, and I realize it's an emotional issue for many people, I think that's something that's very important to consider. And last but not least, there is something within the law called a cluster development. And the properties, or the development across the street, I think it's Briarwood, I'm not positive, but it was done in cluster, and it created lots that were 14,400 square feet, much smaller lots than these 22,000 square foot lots that is the proposal of changing the zoning from R3 to R2. I'm going to sum up this preamble. I know it goes a little long, with the fact that I have seen emails come to me and calls to me. This is propaganda at its best. This is going to be low-income housing, I've been told. That is not true. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that I've heard from people, and this is, it incites the masses. The bottom line on this one is, if this ends up going through, the sketch plan, as Walt will probably show in a minute, between the R3 with 22,000 square foot lots and more buffering around the perimeter of the acreage is much better for green space, buffering, and the neighbors than the R2. Last but not least, as you just heard, Josh Artuso is our Director of Community Development. There is a process to any zone change. It doesn't happen that often. I've been the supervisor for 15.5 months. This is the first proposed zone change that I've sat here as a supervisor. Zoning changes don't happen that often, outside of a comprehensive plan being redone. The process is pretty robust, as I just explained, from 5 board meetings minimally, and hearings and all that from 2018. That seems to be being mimicked here in 2021. When we're done tonight, I'm not going to close the public hearing. We will extend the public hearing to the first board meeting of May 6th, because part of the process is to get some documentation from the County of Monroe, and we have not gotten that documentation yet from them. Is that correct? So, as far as I'm concerned, because I want to hear every little piece of information from anybody who has something to say about this. To me, whether it's phone calls with Dean or emails that I've responded to people, or people coming here tonight, and if people want to come on May 6th, the more the merrier. An informed community is a better community, and I don't want to shortchange anybody. So I'm going to try to make lemons out of lemonade that the county government hasn't gotten us what they said that they would get us in time for this, and we will continue this public hearing on May 6th. With that being said, I'm going to open this public hearing, of which Walt Baker, you are going to give a little presentation, and then in the order of the people that signed in, you will be able to come up to the podium and give 5 minutes of your thoughts on this, pro, con, indifferent. So, the public hearing is now open. Walt, you have the podium.
Good evening. I'm Walt Baker with DSB Engineers. With me tonight is Mr. Richard Battisti of Forest Creek Equity Corporation. Forest Creek Equity is the contract vendee for purchasing of the property known as 230 Salt Road. As the supervisor mentioned, it's 69.6 acres of land, which entails two parcels, two tax count parcels. As we mentioned earlier, one of the parts is about 35 acres and the other one is 33 point something. So it comes out to about 69 acres. It's currently zoned R2, and we're here tonight requesting rezoning of the property from R2 to R3. We did submit maps to the town board as well as the planning board, and our proposal is to rezone the property. And as the supervisor mentioned, the big difference between the R2 and the R3 zoning is the depth of the lot. And obviously, we can make it 28,000 square feet down to 22,000 square feet, which is a matter of 60-foot depth difference. And with that 60-foot change, we're able to adjust the lot sizes so we don't have exact same size lots on all the proposed lots. We're allowed by code to have 79 lots under R2, and we're proposing 79 lots under R3. We're not asking for cluster development, which was actually presented to the board back in 2018. We're going to stick with the conventional zoning. Home sizes will be ranging in the $300,000 price range, so they won't be small houses. They'll be standard size, affordable houses, hopefully, in today's market. The maps I presented actually show this one here is the R3 zoning, and we do have an R2. And as the supervisor mentioned, the R2 plan.
Walt, is there any way you can show that to people in attendance?
Sure. Hold it like that. How's that?
These are up on our website too?
Yeah.
Is this the?
Well, the R2, obviously, there's 79 lots. We have one entrance to the site. It's on public utilities. There's public sanitary, public water available. The topography, actually, north would be towards the supervisor. So if you turned it, north would be up. But the way it is on the drawing, north would be in that direction. And as he mentioned, there's a tree line on the property along the east boundary line. The rest of it is more or less open field. And there's tree lines along the side and some in this area over here. So in an effort to do as the supervisor mentioned, we tried to, with the adjustment with the lot depth, we're able to make the lots up against the tree line 330 feet deep, and then keep these in the 220 depth. And then the lots over here would actually be 220, plus we do have a buffer zone along Salt Road where we're going to put the detention because the drainage flows in 2 points through here and through here. So we're able to create a buffer zone along Salt Road. So with the change between R2 to R3, it gives us flexibility on positioning the lots so we can try to preserve the tree line. We shortened up the cul-de-sac at the north end, the northeast end versus this over here. So we actually try to preserve some more trees so you don't have to cut the trees out in the back. We did that down here. As the town board requested a month ago, that we proceed to the planning board for review and recommendation by the planning board. We were at the planning board last week and presented this to the planning board, and they went ahead and made a recommendation 5-0 for the rezoning from R2 to R3. Just send that message back to the town board. So we're here tonight requesting a rezone.
And Walt, as you heard me say, nothing is going to be decided tonight. We're going to run the public hearing right through to May 6th.
Yes.
So the earliest any vote by the board would be.
Which is typical.
Yeah.
Generally, all the towns in Monroe County that I deal with, they do a referral to Monroe County Planning, to get comments back from Monroe County Planning to see if they have any concerns with the rezone. So generally that takes 30 days. So if you got it out already, hopefully you'll be back by May 6th.
Well, thank you. With that, if you're done with the formal presentation, we will start with the speakers. Mark Collins?
Yeah.
Mark, you want to come up to the podium?
I guess some of my questions are,
And Mark, I'm sorry, can you give your name and your address for the attendance and
Mark
people
Paulus,
watching on TV?
237 Salt Road. I reside directly across the street from the open spot. I guess some of my questions and concerns are probably more directed at Walt, and this may not be the meeting place, but some of them, as I'm sure some of my neighbors, are concerns for the oversaturation of building that's going to take place on that Salt Road corridor. Not only what's already been started on the golf course, but what's being proposed across the street from us, as well as what's going to happen, as I guess, the south side of Schlegel Road on Salt, which was part of the Tremac Meadows development that's going to be built. So some of our concerns are lying in the fact that there's going to be an awful lot of overuse for the road the way it is, what it's going to do to overpopulation for the schools in the area. So those are some of our concerns that, for some of us who are not really in favor of this. With that said, I guess my other questions go to Walt, which may need to go to another meeting, and that's that, I guess if this is going to happen, I'm in agreement with the rezoning to the 220 depth instead of the 280 depth, but I'm also, as a concerned neighbor living across the street from this open space, that things were addressed to my liking so that I'm not looking into somebody's backyard. None of the houses on that development, as this is laid out, will be facing me front yard to front yard. I'll be looking at people's backyards. And my concern is that I'm not looking across the street into a new development where I'm looking at swimming pools, decks, hot tubs, trampolines and such. So I don't know whether I address that at this point here, or we have to wait until we're officially notified that the developer's going forward with his plans.
Well, certainly, if the rezoning happens, then the developer's gonna have to go to the planning board with sketch plans, and all of those things. So that might be probably more appropriate for the planning board, and only because I say is right now it's zoned R2.
Right.
That's a fact. I mean, we all can agree whether we like it or not, and whether you knew or not, it happened back in 2018. They can go and put 79 homes on there. They don't have to come to the town board. Now, they'd have to go in R2 to the planning board to do the sketch, and then you would show up and say, I don't like this configuration you're going to buy. You will have the same ability, if it gets rezoned, to go to the planning board, and as Walt said, and I'm taking them there, I can't imagine, if the rezoning happens and all of a sudden they showed up at the planning board, Mark, and they have 92 houses, you know what I mean?
Right,
Instead of
right,
79,
right.
well, I would have a problem with that,
Right.
because then we all got bamboozled. But I don't think that Walt and the developer would, well, I don't think they would try that.
No, I wouldn't think they would either. I guess my concern is, I'm sure some of these other people's concern is that if you looked at closely with scrutiny to make sure that, is it even right with all that else that's going on, to put 79 homes there? And then in the final analysis, if that's going to happen and none of us can stop that, then I think we're all concerned about everything from the appearance to water runoff and over usage of the road. And, I could go on and on and on. We don't have the time to do that, so we'll let others speak their thoughts.
And you can come back next
I can come back.
2 weeks, and like I said, if it does go through, then you also would be able to go to the planning board during that process, because I would imagine at some time, the developer would have to show up in front of the planning board with their sketch. So,
Okay, very good.
thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
And also, Karen, if
The
we
number
can,
is not up.
okay, yeah, and I mean, we want call-ins because we are still in COVID and it's a public hearing and
Hit the
people
do
can
not
call in.
disturb button until you're ready.
Okay, and then what we'll do is once all the speakers have gone up, then we'll open the phone lines. The do not disturb button, I don't know that. What do you think, Dollar? Oh, that's right, sitting right in front of me. Technology, getting old. All right, next is Dean Bay. Dean, if you can give your name and address?
My name is Dean Bay, I live at 152 Salt Road. I knew that, someday that lots had to go, and I'm looking at what, I did not, first of all, we can't go backwards. Never saw anything on that, change there a couple years ago, but, my concern is, I like what I'm seeing on what the future there is, but I'm concerned, I own everything to the north, and my concern is the water. We got pretty good swales that come north and come through, that run towards my house, and I'm a little worried about when we put lawns in and roads in and streets in, that we can contain the water and slow it down, and get a handle on it.
You saying, because you are to the north, that it possibly you're afraid of that the
Yeah, I own
flow
everything.
would become
Right.
huge. Geez, I would hope that the drainage people and the engineers would not allow abutting properties to be able to be affected by this.
There's a piece of it that kind of comes that way, and then they're going to do something maybe with it. So there's a part of it that tips right into us. Just when you get yards,
Yeah,
streets and roads, you pick up speed, you're going to have to slow it down.
absolutely. Yeah, that's why the process works, because I'm glad you're giving that. I'm making notes here because, sooner or later, whether it's R2 or R3, somebody's gonna propose in front of the planning board building, and I wanna be able to go back to my notes if I'm the supervisor at that time. Hopefully, Dean, you'll show up at the planning board, but I mean, you look like you're more like my age. And we don't buy green bananas anymore, we don't know all that.
That's absolutely right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Dean. All right, next up is Chad Fairhurst.
I have no issue with the zone.
Oh, you wrote 10, you know what? Twice tonight so we're gonna say that you are not a speaker at the public hearing. I think I've got that jammed into my head now, Chad, okay? So actually, up next is James Lovelace.
Actually, sir, I'm third on the agenda. 1210 Wall. Sorry.
Well, you can tell we're a little rusty from the live meetings, huh? All right, well, James, we're looking forward to, you are the, I know exactly which of the agenda you are, you're the fill permit.
Thank you.
All right, well, I hope that Ann and Ray Porter are here to talk about the rezoning.
We're new to Webster, and we just came to see what was going on. We live across the street, directly on the corner of Salt and Morley Way. So this is a big impact to us, and I think Mark lives a couple houses down from us, with what we're going to be looking at when we walk out our front door.
Ann, did we communicate by email in the last week or two?
No?
No? It sounds very familiar. Somebody reached out to me who was new to Webster and had some questions about this, and they did post. Okay. Would you really like to get up to the podium?
I think that's about all we had to say. Being new to Webster, we just wanted to come to a town board meeting and see how everything works, and just not know that much about the R2 and R3 and the zoning laws here. And it's nice to have the developer here so we can see everything, and we know we can't change anything, but maybe with the buffer, they could consider a line of trees.
And Ann and Ray, I disagree that you can't change anything. I would not agree with that at all. There are, people's opinions are going to matter, and that's why,
Well, we
Dean
hope
said
so.
That's a consideration whether that's R2 or R3, to be considerate to the neighbors. Interesting, and like I said, and I'm being redundant, the R3 sketch plan is more considerate to the neighbors than the R2. Which is kind of ironic, because, and I understand this after almost 16 months as supervisor, when we put the headline up there, zoning change being proposed, this is our social media world, this is, you know, you see the headline, and that's bad, 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 bad. And that's why it was important for me over the last couple of weeks to have interaction with people, and it's been a very rewarding experience to get into dialogue and explain that I actually thought, because they're not trying to put more houses in there, and because they are trying to buffer things, it seemed like a logical, makes sense for everybody in Webster, neighbors and the people that really want more green space or to maintain green space. It meets all those. What it doesn't meet is it's not going to be a 70-acre farmer's field. But
We're gonna
that
miss
was
that.
eventually going to happen based on the zoning being R2 right now. So, anything, Ray?
Yeah, as for the green space, I maintain my green space on my side of the road. I mean, supposedly when Gerber turned that portion of the property over to the town, it's a park, I guess that's what I was told.
Are you in Briarwood?
Yes, right around the corner.
Is Briarwood the one that's got the cluster with the 14,000
Yeah.
square foot lot?
Yes.
Okay. I said I did a perfunctory research getting ready for this meeting tonight. I didn't do a deep dive on Briarwood and what that approval and whether there's conservation easements or whether it's a park district or whatever, I don't know.
We were told it was a park district. So across the street, is that gonna be a park district? Like the areas that butt up to Salt Road? Or is that gonna be a settling pond? or-
It probably is not, it's not gonna be a park district.
Okay.
Whether it's a conservation easement or whether with the pond, by definition, it doesn't, I don't know. I mean, Charlie, in your opinion, I mean, that
Well,
we're trying to.
whether it's a park district or not really is a decision between the town board, the planning board, and the developer. So, then I say the town board's decision is basically to approve the plan,
Yeah.
which has the park district on it, so I don't know.
Ray, I don't
Is
want
it
to
gonna be
read
a
into
park
what
district?
you're asking, but if the
Okay.
concern is that after that sketch plan, if that gets through planning board and this all happens and they build it to that, and there's all these buffers, it'll be like, well, wait a minute, all that buffering green space, if it's not park district or whatever, someday they'll go and build on it. That's not gonna happen. It's either gonna be, it won't be part of the people's 220-foot lots. So by definition, that space is going to have to be something. Paul, you said to me, some of it the developers have deeded back over to the town, but we haven't made it park district. Correct.
Briarwood's a park district.
Briarwood is a park district? Is it one of the 13 of the 134 that we? It's one of the inactive, okay. We won't go deep dive on that tonight. All right. Well, Ray and Ann, welcome to Webster.
Thank you. We love it here.
Wait a minute. Jessica Bay. Where's Jessica?
I guess I'll see.
Is this just a coincidence
No.
that there's a Dean Day here tonight and a Jessica?
No.
I might know.
There's more of us.
My name is Jessica Bay, I live at 197 Salt Road.
Okay.
So when I came here, I thought that it was, I got the flyer saying.
Oh, you got the
I
flyer?
did. And I don't recall getting anything a couple years ago. I'm really sad because part of living on Salt Road where I live is that I didn't want to live in a development. And now I have all these developments going up. And I am concerned about the noise, about the traffic. I don't know where the entry is, or the driveway. Morley, so right where you are. So I am in favor of R3, if that's where we have to be. But it's just a sad, I think I'm very sad. For our neighborhood. That's all.
Jessica, I will say this, I mean, like I can sympathize, I can't empathize, because I've lived in Webster for 24 years, I didn't live across from it. But I just also wanted to make sure when you said you got the flyer, but you don't recall getting anything from years ago.
No.
The flyer was not distributed by the town. If the town distributed that flyer, I think we would be liable for a lawsuit for the inaccuracies it had and/or the propaganda-esque.
Right.
But
What
the
would
town had
something-
nothing to do with that. That was a separate group of people that decided that they thought it was important to let everybody that lived around there know that, look what's going on.
Right, but in 2018, would we have not received anything? Through, no?
If that citizen organization didn't decide to put something on your door back in 2018 to let you know that there was public hearings at the town board and planning board, no, you wouldn't have gotten it.
So when you say that we should have from the town? No, yes. From the person petitioning.
We're gonna get, and you will, and Charlie, you might need to be on this one
Well,
once
no,
the,
the notice that was required by law was put out back in 2018, which is publication notice in the official town newspaper, notice in town hall, and if we had electronic means, it was probably published there as well. But that would have been it, and it would have also been televised because obviously it was a public hearing. And it would also have been televised when it went to the planning board because it would have been sent, it was sent to the planning board for review as well. So, but no, there was nothing sent out in terms of a letter or anything like that to the residents.
and Charlie, we're a few speakers away from Dean and Brenda who have some documents there. I'm being paranoid a little bit. I think that they were gonna get up there and say, our code says that we should have sent out something to within 300 feet. And it'll be interesting to see, because I think it's gonna be just the fact that this is not a planning board development. When they go, if this goes through and they go to do a sketch plan and approval of this, people that live within 300 feet of that proposed development are going to get a letter. That's the law, that's the code. And if you have something that overtly says, and you're planning a rezoning, well, this is great, I'm glad we're keeping, you're not up yet. But if that's what it says, and Dean, I bet you're a hell of a contractor, but I'm gonna look at my attorney for legal things. I wouldn't go to Charlie to build my addition. I'd go to you. So whatever you got there, Charlie will ultimately look at, and if you did find something, then I'm very happy with the fact that we're extending this public hearing until May 6th. Next up is Donald Paul.
I'm just a resident across the street in the Briarwood development, and I'm just interested to find out what's going on. Because they just recently moved into that development last year, late last year.
Would you like to get up and say some words, Don?
Not at this point.
Okay. Next up is, and I don't know if it is Alyssa or Elisa Demora.
Yeah, I'm not here for that, I'm just observing.
I'm sorry.
You know, you can't hear. I'm not here for this, I'm just observing, because I will be here for other town meetings, but not this one.
So we have our first person, well, besides the previous supervisor, who is actually here just to come to a town board meeting.
Right, yeah.
That's fantastic.
I knew what it was on, so I just wanted to see how things were going to
All right. Well, thanks for coming.
be. You're
And is it
welcome.
Elisa or Alyssa?
Elisa.
Elisa,
Yeah.
okay. You're getting close, Dean and Brenda. Next up is Dave Malecki.
I spoke first. Sorry about that.
Oh, yes, good.
Guess I jumped the line, huh?
All right. Chad Fairhurst gets 2 references tonight, and Dave gets 1 that is not within the public hearing. Actually, Dean and Brenda, you are up.
My name is Dean Lucas, and I live at 290 Salt Road, which is basically, that's me. So Dean is on the north side, and I'm on the south side. So basically, what I'm talking about is in Webster's bylaws. It says when you're rezoning, then not the town of Webster has to send me a letter, but the man applying for that rezoning is responsible. And if they don't do it within, how many days? 60 days?
That they have to do by first class mail, all property owners of record within 300 feet of the outside perimeter or boundary line. And if they, at least 7 days prior to such hearing, the applicant has to file with the town clerk an affidavit of mailing such notices. And if they don't, do that prior to the public hearing, failure to receive such notice shall not be deemed a jurisdictional defect of the town board. Because it's not on the town to do it, it's whoever's petitioning to have their property rezoned. This is one of the steps on your website that I printed right from the Webster page. And we were supposed to get a first-class mailing notice of a public hearing. And it says, if the petitioner does not request a public hearing as provided for by this section within 3 months after the planning board makes its report, the petition shall be deemed withdrawn. So I guess a lot of the neighbors, our question is, we still didn't even get one tonight. Why wouldn't we have gotten one the first time in 2018? So again, now it's not abiding by these rules which are on your website. None of us got a first-class mailing. So we didn't get it in 2018, and we didn't get it prior to tonight. And it states right in here that that's supposed to take place. And 7 days prior to this meeting, that person is supposed to come and file with the town clerk that, yes, here's my thing, I did this first-class mailing to these landowners within 300 feet.
We are definitely within 300
We are, our property is, from Salt Road, our driveway, so this whole spot here is our property. And I want to laugh when he says that they're preserving the tree line that's here. I have several pictures of our yard. We see clear into the field all the way up to the tree line that borders Dean's property. There is no tree line to preserve. They're basically branches and sticks of property that are trees that are dead. They fall, they come into our property all the time.
So to get off of that topic, because that really doesn't, that's not what we're crossing right now. My concern, and Tom, we had a great conversation, and I don't think we agreed to disagree. I think we both have a like mind.
Well, we didn't talk about this.
We did not.
And I will tell you right now, if you're right, then we will change gear and figure out, and I'm glad the public hearing's open till the 6th, because that'll give, you have documents over there, unfortunately, unless.
Charlie was nodding. Charlie was nodding when Brenda was.
Well, no, is it the 225
Yes.
dash 5.1?
Yes.
225 dash 5.1? I don't have the code here, unfortunately, in front of me.
I printed this out just before we came.
Okay.
But at any rate, as far as the R2 to R3,
Okay.
I do agree with you, Tom, and with you, Dean, that the R3 is much more appealing to the eye.
Yep.
And having said that, I will say that the buffer zone does literally nothing for me. The wood line you're talking about on the east side is you can't see a house unless it's dark, unless there's lights on. So the house that it will benefit doesn't need that benefit anyway. He's so far away with woods of his own. I'm the one that needs it. Dean is the one that needs it.
We are the ones that are taking the brunt. And as far as the water that Dave's talking about, you can take it from me. This will severely affect me as well as him. The water there now, I can't even mow my woods until July.
Well, you can't go back.
The water is absolutely horrendous, and it's gonna get much worse when it's happens. There's a lot to talk about, but I think the biggest thing that I have is that 2018 was incorrect, and I think that depending on how far we gotta go with this, I think we're gonna have to see if we can get that brought to right.
This is the first
But
one
is it
hearing.
not on the
Whether we gotta go
picture that they can
lawyer-wise or
find
not, something's gotta be
I don't
made.
know, I have to check with the town clerk's office and find out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's on the slow.
And very, very, very nice talk.
Yeah, it was good talking to you.
It was awesome. I think it was more like a half hour.
Pardon?
I think it was more like a half hour that we spoke.
It wasn't that long.
It was a very nice
Well, I
talk.
enjoyed it, and I'll tell you what,
I did.
if this, then we'll have to move forward with, right is right.
Right as well. Amen. Yep, I agree.
They probably did.
Boy, how do you got one more person here, that's a tough one to follow, but the last person here is Mike McGee.
That was tough to follow. I am new to Webster, and I live right next to Dean, so I am like right here. And in a nutshell, it just seems like we're really beating up one area. And to be new, I mean, this is gonna be my third summer. So this right here is what I moved away from. And I'm 37, I have 3 little kids, 2, 4, and 7. And so, you know, when I bought the property I bought, it was like gold for us. I mean, we hit the lotto. So this is not what I thought it was gonna be. So, thanks.
Thank you.
I still like Webster, but
Well,
I mean, that's like North Wind Road.
So now, since everybody in the room who signed up to speak has spoken, we will open up the phone lines for a few minutes for anybody at home. Now I gotta get off Do Not Disturb. And I will shut down who is called. Okay, I wanna do this right on hang up. Hello?
Hello, this is Ed Stenny. Did I finally get through?
You most certainly did, Ed Stenny. This is Supervisor Flaherty. I take it you're calling in about the proposed zoning change.
Yes, I am. I was there when we had the meeting last week. I was there tonight, but I just found out I had COVID, so people wouldn't want me here. But, I mean, I do have a comment. I understand, you know, what was explained about the R2 and the R3, and that either way, there'd be 79 homes built. My concern is why so many? I understand about, you know, the notice that was read out in 18, in June of 18, I don't know, I didn't see it, none of my neighbors saw it, but, you know, I have to believe that it did go out. But the problem is that, I mean, this isn't that type of area. Because most of us living here, when I moved here in 85, one of the reasons I moved to Webster is we weren't like everywhere else. We weren't like Greece, we weren't like Henrietta. Now I'm seeing us build like crazy. The road outside here is a 2-lane road. In the summertime, I see parents on bikes with their kids. I see other people out there trying to enjoy themselves. Now, with that many homes, that's going to be almost 180 more cars on the road going in and out of there every day. The people who owned it, the man who owned that lot, would not even sell a piece of it because he didn't want what's happening to happen. Now he's out of the picture. He's down in South Carolina, and well, let's go ahead and build. I have nothing against building. People on property, they have a right to do what they want. But on the other hand, we have to, you know, be aware of what we're doing to the environment. I just, you know, I would have, you know,
Well, Ed, I gotta tell you, I wanna thank you for calling in. I wish you were here, but I certainly appreciate that if you just found out you got COVID.
I mean, is there any way that we can at least reduce the number of homes there? I mean, why does it have to be that many?
Yeah.
What happens if it's 60?
Yeah. Ed, if you were watching on TV, the R2 zoning, with 28,000 square foot lots, based on 70 acres, it allows for 79 houses. The developer is saying they'll go to R3 zoning, smaller lots, but they won't make more houses. So they're actually building the proper number of houses for an R2 zoning, but they're gonna continue that over to R3. So if that's what the current zoning code laws are, there's nothing that we can sit here and tell them, you shouldn't build 79.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Who's gonna make sure that what they show now is what they're gonna do?
Well, actually, if you were watching, we had said that if this does go through, yeah, and if it goes to the planning board, we have a lot of notes here. I think that Walt, who presented, and the developer, it would be a real bad move if they all of a sudden showed up at the planning board with a sketch review for 97 homes or whatever.
Sure.
All right? Well, listen, I hope you feel better. I hope you feel better, and, yeah, because, Ed, you know what you can do? We're gonna have the public here.
Okay, well, you're gonna have a public hearing when?
No, we're having it now, but if you've been watching, we're gonna keep it open until, for the May 6th meeting. So I know you're gonna be better from COVID by May 6th. Ed, we hope you come to that meeting in person.
No, I will be there, but I'm disappointed that the town allowed Gerber to build across the road, and Gerber didn't do what they were supposed to do. Yet no one from the town ever said anything about it. And I was at that meeting.
Well, Ed, I do appreciate you calling in. I like I said, I can sympathize with the emotion of this. I hope you feel better and get well soon.
All right?
All right, bye-bye.
I'll be there.
Okay, so. Hello?
Hello, this is Carol Hayden. I'm calling in regard to the board meeting time.
Yes.
Yeah, so I live across the street from the development. I'm at 215 Salt Road and 211 Salt Road. I live those two directly across from the north end of the property, the property development. And I also want to talk about the water flow from the culvert on the north end of that property that flows from the east side of the street into my property on the west side of the street. And I want to make sure that the water is contained and does not continue to flow to my property, which flows to my yard every year. As Dean and Andy talked about, that we can't let my water out usually until June and July itself, because it's usually flooded from all the water that's diverted from the east side into the west.
You know, interestingly enough, and I'm not an engineer, and Walt, you'd be better to answer this, is that where I appreciate everybody is like, we love looking at that 70-acre open field. If houses are built there and there's a retention pond and certain drainage configurations, it might solve the problem of these adjacent properties who have had water issues. If the water issues they feel is coming from the, what do you call it, the pervious or the farm field. Walt, can you comment to that?
Yeah. You're correct. What we do, obviously, is provide what we call detention facilities. It's actually a federal mandate, and it's mandated down to the state, and the state to the town, and the town to the developers, and we have to provide on-site detention facilities. And when we do that, we are regulated to not let any more water leave the site than leaves today at that rate. And what we generally do is when we put in a control structure, we downsize it, and the town generally has us say we can allow the rate to go off at the same rate it's going off today. Well, we throttle it back by 20 or 30%, so we make the pond bigger, so it slows down the water, so it doesn't impact the people downstream. In Mr. Bay's property, when we actually get the topo, our surveyors have been out there collecting all of the topography. We have county topo, it's on the map now, but he does have an area that drains off to his property. What we do is we make sure nothing leaves the property. We put on-site backyard inlets, and we bring that backyard inlet to our road system down to the ponds. So it actually make the drainage better.
Gotcha. Thanks, Will. And Cheryl, I don't know how much of that you heard, but if this does go forward, whether it's R2, R3, if there's houses built there, I'm sure, as it goes through the planning board and the configuration of retention ponds, it may actually, well, it sounds like it would have an ancillary benefit to the neighbors of the water issues they've had flowing up down to their properties from the 70 acres of farm field. They wouldn't have that water flowing into their lands. Cheryl, thank you very much for calling in.
Yeah, one of the other things that I just wanted to talk about was, because I agree with what was said about the large lot designation, and we really like to do the documentation that it wasn't trivial, not the thing, we do the whole plan rezoning. But the other concern I have is, and I understand that the R2 and R3 zoning is on the Webster site, what those definitions are of those terms. I think that's what everybody is using. Because, just to make sure that it's houses or single family homes, or if there's any apartments or condos, anything like that, I think it would be good if this plan is changed. But the other question I have is, what is the decision criteria for allowing the rezoning of these large lots to R2, R3? So listening to the planning board meetings and the condo meetings, there did not seem to be any criteria for the decision other than the opinion of the board members.
Well, I will tell you this, Cheryl. I can speak to the opinion of why the R2 to R3 is being proposed in 2021, and it's being redundant to everything that has been shown and said here today. It's the same amount of houses as R2. It's going to create buffer opportunities, either existing tree lines or maybe as they develop it, adding pine trees and things like that on the buffer to the north and south. That's an easy one to give the reason. I don't have an answer for 2018. I wasn't here. I don't know what was said in those meetings, what the rationale was. I just know that all the meetings happened back in 2018, and the zoning change went from large lot to R2 at that time. So I can't speak to what happened in 2018. I can only speak to what's happening right now. All right?
So just one final comment, and that is I want to just build on what my neighbor talked about is, if this plan does go through, we don't have, if this goes through, I would like to see a berm along Salt Road, similar to the berm that's on the meadows on the east side of Phillips Road, to obstruct the view of the neighbors and the property from the road. I too, don't sort of look into someone's backyard or side yard. And originally, I thought it was going to go down Phillips Road, just north of that fire station, between Rubber Road.
And Cheryl, like I said, if you've been watching, whether or not this goes through from R2 to R3, eventually if something's built there, it will go through all the process of the planning board, and people will be able to come, like yourself, and lobby for those type of things. Buffers, berms, all that. All right? Okay. Thank you, Cheryl.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I am going to take, if there's one more call, I'll take one more call because we're going to be keeping this open until May 6th, I won't be cutting anybody off. They'll have an opportunity. So.
I have a question. I want to just make sure I'm understanding correctly. So we can come back May 6th, but when this goes to the planning board, do we also have an opportunity to go to the planning board as well to hear what they actually, their final?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so like when the
Yes.
caller talked about the berm and some of those
Yes.
neighbors have, so that we can see, okay, yeah, they have decided to make a berm or this
Yes.
or that.
Yes, and I'm gonna come back to one of your other question about can you come back May 6th? I'm gonna get to
Okay.
that after this call. Hello?
Hello, my name is Ted Woods of 257 South Road. I'm looking to talk to Tom Flaherty about the zoning.
Well, you're talking to Tom Flaherty and about 50 other people, not that many, 30 other people in the room. That's right, we don't want to say that we're not being COVID compliant, we are being COVID compliant. And you're also talking to people that are watching on TV and live streaming, so Scott, let it rip. Scott?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, you, by all means, if you're here to call for the public hearing about the potential zone change, shoot away.
Oh, am I just gonna talk to you?
Scott, we have you on speakerphone, and everybody here in the room can hear you, and anybody watching at home on channel 1303 or live stream can hear you too.
Okay. So that was 257 South Road. I do live right across the street from the property. A couple of things I guess I wanted to bring up. I certainly am on board with a lot of things that were said there, so I'll try not to repeat it. I'm looking at the two lots R2, R3, and we keep talking, or I keep hearing about the tree line going to be improved. And I actually don't see that on the plans. It looks like to the north, east, and south, the tree line and the depth of the properties look identical, the same. It looks like the buffer's only being created along Salt Road, where the backyards are no longer sit on Salt Road. Is everyone seeing the same thing?
Did you understand the question, by the way? He's saying that from what he's looking at, he thinks the only buffer is on the Salt Road side, on the west side, that on the east at the back of the property and on the north and south where neighbors are, there is no buffer.
Well, the existing tree line on the north and south are on the property line. So that's where the natural tree line is right now. When we get to the planning board stage, the planning board may turn around and say, geez, we'd like you to see if you plant some pine trees or something like that. Obviously, along Salt Road, we're looking at doing a berm and some trees. Obviously, the on-site detention will be there, and that'll be under easement to the town as well, but not a
Sure.
park district.
So Scott, I don't know if you heard that from Walt, the engineer, but as it moves forward into the planning board, that's where they would get into more detail about the berms on Salt Road, and the existing tree lines that are back of the property, which I guess is the east of the property.
At this
And
stage,
also
we're not.
things that can happen on the north and south where there are actual neighboring houses.
Right.
So, all right, Scott?
Yep, the other comment I wanted to make was, we looked at some of the meeting notes back in 2018, and some of the comments that we're seeing is, when I went to R3, it was in line with kind of what was going on in the area. But obviously, go way back to 2008, when, there was a plan for all of this. I guess the one concern would be, if this goes to R3, and then more properties are want to go for sale, and obviously the owners are all looking to go from LL to something smaller so they can actually sell off the property. As we continue to allow the zones to get smaller and smaller, my fear is that they're going to say, well, it's right next to an R3 anyway, so why can't we be R3? And then the next property says, well, we're right next to R3, why can't that be R3? So it just seems like it might be a little bit of a slippery slope. Sooner or later, all the landowners probably in this area are going to probably want them selling the land off, and only the developers want it. So I guess that would be one of my concerns is, I may agree that R3 looks a little better on paper right now over the R2, but, what are we really looking at in the future for, adjoining properties in the same thought process?
It's a hard one to assess, what would be done in the future. From everything I've learned, all of these are looked at on their own individual merits, and seldom in a rezoning, and it doesn't happen that often, is precedent brought in like you just described. But, You know, whether past performance is gonna be a dictator of what happens in the future, Scott, I don't know. All right?
Well, I mean, those are my concerns that most of the board kind of thinks of, because if you look at, you know, these properties over here 10 years ago, you know, this wasn't, you know, even thought of. So, I mean, the slippery slope does seem to be heading our way. It looks like a lot of the building is on the Salt Coast corridor right now. You know, all land that was once agricultural and then went to large lot, slowly been, you know, going down to R2 now, R3, if you look, you know, even on this Schlegel, Salt Road, Phillips Corner type stuff. So that would be my concern there.
All right. Well, Scott, thank you very much for calling.
You're welcome.
All right, take care. And I'm gonna put this on Do Not Disturb, because like I had said previously, I called, that's the last call we'll take, because if somebody reaches out to us and says they didn't get called in, we'll have an opportunity on May 6th. But to your first part of your question, your second part was, did you get a chance to go to the planning board if this moves on? That was an easy one.
So I'm assuming if I can go to the planning board, so I just have to watch on the town's website to see when it'll be coming in front of the planning board?
No, because in those situations,
I get a notice.
you get a letter.
How lovely of
Right?
you.
And I'm about to find out in the next couple of days if my new friends, the Lucases, had merit to the documents they had.
And I
whether
hope
it's a
they,
legal
I'm hoping they
interpretation.
do, because
It will-
I can't understand why that would be such a big secret when that was changed.
Well,
And although you say that they was done in the town paper, and I get that is the law, but it's always been, used to be years ago, if within so many feet, you get a notice of something. So,
You still do if there is development going on or being proposed to the planning board, there has to be within 300 feet of the meets and bounds of that proposed development.
and I get that, and I
Residents, business owners
totally
get
understand
that.
what you're saying.
With the ambiguity here, it won't be ambiguous within a couple of days, I will tell you that.
And I'm hoping, but the
is
town of
what
Webster
Dean
spent a lot of
said.
money on master plans, and they made decisions, and then all of a sudden they just say, oh, yep, this is a good idea, we'll just change it. And no, and people aren't there to say, why aren't you sticking to your master plan?
So I wanted to answer the first part of your question, which is, I hope you come back May 6th, but I want to make sure something's very clear as we end this part of the public hearing, okay? I took a lot of notes from each of the speakers. The fact that we're extending the public hearing, consider it's like one long public hearing. If you got up and you said your piece, if you come on May 6th and you want to get up and say your piece and say the same thing, I'm just forewarning people, I don't want to be a jerk about this. No, you don't get to say twice the same thing. Now, if you have additional information, by all means, I would not want to stunt your ability to get up and say that. Does everybody understand that? Okay. And as always, in between now and then, my phone line, my email address, I'd love to talk to you, because I'll tell you what, the more information I get, the better it is for me to be able to, navigate these type of situations for the best of the community. So, geez, Charlie, I don't bang the hammer down, right?
Well, I'm gonna make a suggestion though to Walt that you make sure that the notices get out prior to the next meeting, if they haven't, okay?
Well, according to the code, and I read the submittal application requirements, the town board didn't have any notification to be sent out. The planning board does it, not a concept, only a preliminary. The zoning board does it with a zoning board application, so.
No, the town board does not, but take a look at that section, because
Yeah, and I want to make a suggestion on this, and I haven't looked at the section, and I'm not an attorney or whatever, but I listened to what Brenda was reading off. I think it was Brenda that was reading it off. And if I heard it correctly, you said the owner.
The one petitioning for
Okay.
rezoning, which would be the.
Well, the owner, as that gentleman just said on the phone, is in South Carolina. The owner is not petitioning for this. So I want to make sure that we do this, if there has to be a notice that goes out within a certain amount of feet, who is that party that has to do it? The owner right now, I think the owner, there's been no closing of the sale, that's public record, right?
We're contract vending.
I don't know if they could.
I would think it would be the applicant, not the
Well,
owner.
let's take a look at.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that,
Make sure.
and we'll let you know.
Every other application we've done with the town regarding the planning board, concept doesn't require a mailing. Preliminary requires the mailing. After you got preliminary, you go to final, no mailing.
The section, though, that we're referring to is the rezoning section,
Right.
225-5.1.
Well, that's not in the submittal requirements that I received. No, it's not in the submittal requirements I received from the town a month ago.
Yeah.
Not stated. Well, I understand what you're saying, but understand what I'm saying. I got direction
Yeah.
on what to do.
And Walt,
We did that.
Dean, and Brenda, and everybody here, process works. You don't see us voting on this tonight, process works.
If it's followed.
Let's go and get the facts, okay? And proceed accordingly. Thanks, Walt.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody, for coming. And, right, Charlie, you don't have to bang the ballot, you just say halftime?
Well, yes, you can adjourn.
We will adjourn the public hearing for the time being at 8:45 p.m. I think it opened at 9 o'clock.
You can table it, I'll probably make a motion to table it.
All right. Nice meeting you.
So I grew up around the driver, bunch traffic.
Okay, then I make a motion, Bill, did you make a motion?
I made a motion, we table this.
Six. Aye. All right. Now, the next report, going to be probably a little boring for all of you. But let's, John, I think you were in looking at the bills.
Yeah, I did review the bills yesterday, found everything in order, the paid bills is seen by the director.
I second.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott? Supervisor Curry?
Aye. And I went over the prepaid warrants submitted by the judge of finance and make a motion.
Second.
Surrey?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Well, this must be. This is Mr. Lovelace.
Thank you.
Is it the Sherborne or is that?
Chad Hurst.
Or is Chad, have I gone 0 for 3 on you? Yes, I have, 501 Sherborne.
Yeah.
Chad? Without further ado. Chad?
Yep.
Public hearing is closed. I don't want to hear anything about Salt Road.
You will not, probably,
Okay, or it's not closed, it's adjourned.
May 6th.
Right. I hope you come back.
Probably not.
So Chad, you give your name and
Yep.
address and make sure you're tonight.
Chad Fairhurst, at 501 Sherborne Road, Webster. We're looking to put a 12 by 16 shed on a drainage and utility easement out of our backyard. We moved the house about 4 years ago. There was an in-ground pool already there. The pool and the fence have been there about, I'm guessing, 30-some years. And part of the fence is on the drainage easement also. It's been there 20 to 30 years. So we would like to get a shed behind the pool there. Give a map.
Right.
Give a map.
Yep.
And we want to kind of okay the shed that's, or the fence that's been there. There's that back corner, there's like a couple feet of the shed, or the couple feet of the fence that's on that drainage.
Josh, have you looked at this?
Yes, Joe Mayer went out to the property, checked out the drainage easement area, and he provided us with his blessing. He felt that it would not impact any drainage in this location.
Okay.
Did he didn't supply us a letter?
He supplied something in writing, but I wouldn't call it a letter. It was a
Charlie, usually we get the letter from sewer, or from highway superintendent, whether it's,
This came in, obviously, when it wasn't a highway sewer.
yes. Okay. Well, I mean, if we move forward with this tonight, I would like something in writing from somebody from the highway department, like we almost got.
You could, it's up to the board, you can make it conditional on approval from the highway department, on written approval.
Right, and if he gives that written approval tomorrow, it's not holding up the process, Chad doesn't have to come back here May 6th.
No, I'll take care of everything from here if we get the letter. If we don't get the letter, then it'll fail. It'll be a condition. I mean, that's certainly appropriate.
Okay.
These are the people also.
Do any of the board members have any questions other than Barry, yours? And you hit the nail on the head. I was looking like, where's the letter?
Mr. Fairhurst, do you own the property yourself, or do you own it in common with your wife?
I do.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's our house, yes.
The two of you? Right. All right, I'm gonna need, I'll talk to you when this is over. I'm gonna need more information than I have.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I am going to make a motion, resolution of the Webster Town Board to grant limited relief from an established easement at 501 Sherborne Road, Webster, New York. The regular town board meeting on April 15th. Following resolution was offered by Supervisor Flaherty. Whereas a 40-foot wide drainage and utility easement was granted to the town of Webster as shown in the map as recorded in Monroe County Clerk's Office in Item 210. Whereas Chad Fairhurst is the owner of the property located at 501 Sherborne Road. Stop there. Is your wife also the owner?
Yep, yes.
And her name is?
Jennifer Fairhurst.
Step back, whereas Chad and Jennifer Fairhurst are the owners of the property located at 501 Sherborne Road, Town of Webster. Whereas Robert Jacobs has applied to erect a 12-foot by 16 foot.
That's a typo.
Nope. Sorry. All right. Is the next,
So
one?
Chad has applied to,
So it's, just the name's a typo.
Just the name. Where Chad and Jennifer has applied to erect a 12-foot by 16-foot shed upon and within the aforesaid easement in accordance with the height and setback requirements as set forth in the code of the town of Webster, and that in the event placement and or size of such shed is not in such conformance, such shed not be constructed unless proper variances are received from the town of Webster zoning board of appeals. Whereas the applicant has requested relief from the Webster Town Board to permit the aforesaid 12-foot by 16-foot shed. Whereas the town of Webster has the authority to grant relief requested, the public good will not be harmed. Therefore, pursuant to the application of Chad and Jennifer Fairhurst, owner of 501 Sherborne, and the recognition of hardship created at the relief sought herein is not granted to limited detriment to the town of Webster, and upon consideration of all relevant factors, the Webster Town Board hereby allows the construction of the aforesaid 12-foot by 16-foot shed, which will exist upon the approach upon easement effective 501 Sherborne Road, Town of Webster. This is conditioned upon letter from the highway department as to the lack of detriment to the town of Webster. That sound like good legal? Thank you. Yeah, you know I didn't go to law school. This resolution in no way applies to any other encroachment, violations, or relief sought by the owner, his successors, grantees, or assignees. The relief is granted upon the following conditions: the proposed shed shall encroach upon and said easement is proposed as shown in the survey map prepared by O'Neill Rodak Land Surveying Associates. The proposed 12 by 16 shed shall not be expanded to further encroach on or in the easement, nor will it be moved from the permitted place within the easement as shown on the instrument survey map presented to the town board. Upon the destruction or demolition of the aforesaid 12 by 16 foot shed or any part thereof, through natural cause or otherwise, the owner of the 12 by 16 foot shed will not reconstruct without a specific resolution of the town board authorizing its replacement or reconstruction. The owner of the shed shall be solely responsible for any damage caused by or the shed as a result of the town's maintenance of said easement, and the owner and his successors and assigns further agree to indemnify, defend, and hold harmless from any or loss of damage caused to or by the 12 by 16 foot shed as a result of work done by the town as a result of reasonable and necessary work done by the town within the easement. In the event of an emergency or the town deems it necessary or imperative, the town will have the right to remove or take down all or any part of such shed without recourse by the owner or successor or assigned to such removal or taking down. This resolution shall in no way affect the rights, if any, of any other public entities or public utilities in or to the said region. The record owner of the proposed 12 by 16 foot shed in the town of Webster will enter into this licensing agreement incorporating all conditions of this resolution in the form and substance as approved by the town attorney, in which will further provide the owner at his expense will record the licensing agreement in the county clerk's office.
Second.
Thank you, Bill.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
I'm going to hand the baton to you, Charlie, to tell Mr. Fairhurst what happens next.
I will talk to Mr. Fairhurst right now.
I just have a question.
Oh, sure.
So, at the beginning of Sherborne Road, it's kind of like an L shape. From the start of Sherborne down to where it starts to curve, which is about 2 miles from the start of it to where it curves, there's probably 10 or 15 sheds within this easement. So it's just kind of, I guess I'm just wondering why, how come I'm the only one that has to go through this process to get a legal document?
Why, you talk to each one of those people?
I talked to my direct neighbor that you have to go through any of this, and this easement starts at the front of Sherborne and goes all the way down.
Because they never bothered to come in and check with the town, they just put the shed up. If you want my direct response.
Well, that's a direct
You're
response.
legally doing it.
I hope that your neighbors aren't watching tonight, because now you, of course, now I gotta look into that. And-
Technically, I believe when they go to sell that house.
Yes.
Yep.
Then at that time, they're gonna have to, they're gonna have to, either they or the person that purchased it is gonna have to then come in and get like a retroactive permit.
Or remove it.
Or remove it, or it will be removed. So you're doing it the right way.
I'm gonna guess this, Chad, is that your neighbors, and I hope you're not getting nervous, like, oh, son of a gun, now I've just blown in my neighbors. But the reality is this. The system has checks and balances. All of those sheds, if they went through a building permit the right way at the town, my guess is the building permit process would have seen, oh shoot, you're in an easement, you gotta go get a license. So they may have doubled down on this. They may have gone and put the shed in and said, I'm not gonna go to the town, I'm gonna just put the shed in. So this is gonna be interesting. But thank you. You were very smart to do it the right way. And I will try to not, as we research this, let them know that we found out from you.
So if I get a letter from the highway department, I can, because I have to order the shed, it takes like a month.
You're not getting a letter.
Letter will go to Josh.
We're gonna just tomorrow get the letter.
Just so you'll get it tomorrow, I just need to know, because I have to order the shed.
Charlie's about to tell you.
I'll talk to you about it.
Josh, did
Right now.
you got that? Oh, because I want to check with Rod and look at the building permits and all that, okay?
So we're all set?
We are all set.
Thank you so much.
You may have to move, but you're all set.
I applaud you for doing it the right way. I just know how to tick tell you what, there's probably a little hyperbole in there, but if we find out there's a string of sheds in that easement, that's not gonna sit well. We'll send Bill out there for our public relations on that one. That'll be interesting. I videotaped that. Les, you should go out there, and that's a good reality show. Oh, wait a minute, let me guess. You want sheds on the access bridge?
No, I wouldn't mind a shed in my property, but I don't know if I'd come here to ask for it.
Well, then I don't know if you'd have to, as long as you're not putting it in an easement.
The question about the easement there, does that go along Sherborne Road, or does it go across back to his backyard?
The man has his laptop in front of him with a map,
Oh, I
and
can bring it over there.
unfortunately, you know what? Do you live over there?
No,
We'll talk offline.
that's
Okay, but I appreciate your inquisitive nature.
because there's a park behind, right?
Okay, let's go
Building
to,
department's liaison.
what's it?
That would be the building department's liaison's task. I think
Oh,
that's
come on,
John.
Bill, you know what? You live for that
I
stuff.
think that's John.
You would live for that.
Right.
Yeah, wow. I bet you Mr. Love is like, I don't want to come up there now. James, whatever you do, don't say, you know, there's 17 neighbors of mine that have filled up their stuff.
I'm pretty sure did the right thing and asked and told them ahead of time before any of this stuff. So,
James, if you can give your name and your address and tell us what you're here for.
I'm James Lovelace. I reside at 1210 Wall Road, West New York. I'm looking to just have a basic fill permit, maybe not so basic, because I'm looking to have approximately 1,800 cubic yards added. I came up with this number with my father. He works for the Brighton Highway Department. He's in charge of the Parks and Rec, the trees. So he kind of knows maybe a little something, maybe not. Other than that, it's basically what I'm looking to have done. My yard's currently from the back of my house to about 100 feet out. It drops off to 6 feet at the most, and then back up at 6 feet to get that. I don't mind the variation change, throughout the yard, around about almost 3 acres, 2.97. I don't mind that part. It's just where the space I'd like to use the yard, I like it to be flat. I just want to go with the town because I know that there's possible drainage maybe issues, or just want to make sure everything was addressed before I just brought in Phil. This all started way back when I dealt with Mr. Jeff Benway. I approached him and asked him to, for a fill permit. He just basically told me I needed to come up with a print, which hopefully you have, and where the areas I was looking to have filled. He had come out and asked for a $50 deposit for the fill, which I was told got lost throughout the whole transaction of things. I was told he no longer works here. So then
Was this a check?
it was a check, yeah.
Did it clear?
I believe so. I would assume so. I mean, this was back in, 2 years ago.
Okay.
I owned a home for 5, so this was pretty short time after I owned the home. I'd like to have it filled in. But other than that, I tried to follow up on this throughout the whole time. I kind of let it go for a while, and was waiting to receive a permit before I started bringing in truckloads of dirt. I just didn't think his word was the right thing to do, just to start bringing in dirt. So I waited, and then called again and said, I works here. Was told there was a different process now. Going through, I guess, the process I was told through Tom Corbett. He was the person that come out and checked it out, as well as Joe Herbalist, I believe his name was. Herbst, yeah. They both did come out and check it out just to see, have eyes on it, walk the land. They both told me there was not any problems that they could see. So I just want to make sure that that's all good.
Where's the bill coming in from?
That's obviously I'd like to offer the town the first option, goes to the town of Webster to dump if they have anything first. The next thing, I've received word from Rochelle Construction, has quite a bit of fill and is willing to work with me to move the dirt for me on top of that. So I haven't approved any of these companies yet because I'm waiting for the fill permit. I don't know if you need that first or after. I mean, if you guys have the fill, I would like to just give it all to you guys.
Yeah, I just would like to make sure that it's not contaminated.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not.
Runoff reasons.
Yep. No, it would just be concrete and subsoil, and then of course topsoil at the end, on top of that. And also maybe the only other issue I maybe have is there's a non-working well on the property. I was told that it used to work. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I'd like to. I have a proposal to bring up the well to use it in the future. So basically, adding some sort of culvert or something to extend it, bring in the fill, and then just have obviously an appropriate top that's safe and to leave it, for until.
Is the well in the area you're gonna fill?
Yes, it's actually dead middle of the area. Yep.
And that's probably where the area is left low.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yep. My house was built in 1863, so I had the cistern and the evidence of it used to working, and obviously all the draining going to my house. That no longer works on our public water and sewer as of now. So I just like to bring back the old history of the home, basically. Build something that looks a little bit better than what's there in the future.
So to answer John's question about how the town monitors a project of this nature, the fill permit is only good for a 6-month period. We do ask that the homeowner periodically give us a call so that we can come out and inspect at certain points throughout the duration of the work.
Do you do any testing of any kind or require that the owner show that the clean fill not contaminated?
We do not do any in-house testing.
And we don't require that.
No, not really, no.
Assuming, I would imagine Bill and Newberry would know 1,800 yards makes sense for what you're showing.
I wouldn't know without looking at the site.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
But he's already had someone who has experience in estimating it, so.
I
Well,
can give you dimensions if that
You
would
see
help.
the picture?
How I came up with this number.
Oh, okay, so, that's right, you can't tell the depth
Right.
from this, that's a good point, yeah. that's right.
1,800 yards of fill is a good amount of fill.
Yeah, that's a lot.
At the deepest point, it's over my head, so 6 feet at the deepest point.
Yeah, that sounds
How many
about right.
fills in a day?
So it's about 100 by 100 by 5 feet deep on average, and then obviously it's divided by 27 to get the cubic yards, and that's kind of what I came up with.
Yeah, that's good, you're gonna have quite a few truckloads coming.
Oh, for sure, yeah, yep, definitely.
Your dad have some equipment to move this all around?
We'd have to rent on top of that, but that was part of why Webster wasn't at the top of the list right away, because Rochelle was the first one to say, oh, who's gonna move it? We'd offer, if you let us dump, we'll move it for you, so.
Nice.
No, that really helps, definitely.
Yes,
I
it
know,
does.
I know it gets expensive and cost-wise, but that's definitely the number one.
Should probably notify your neighbors.
Yeah, I actually already did, and then obviously I told them we are having a board meeting about it, so if there's anything that they both would like to say or have questions about. We all think, actually my 2 neighbors next to me think they would actually benefit both of them as far as their drainage, so. So I think that
Does water collect in there during the wet season?
absolutely, yeah, right in the bottom of my yard, and then as it goes, it actually goes over to the east, and no, it goes to the west over my Mr. Anderson's driveway. So his driveway goes pretty 200 yards back.
When this is filled, will the runoff from it have an effect on either of the neighbors? Josh, has anybody inspected this?
Yes.
Okay.
Corbett's been out there,
Okay.
as well as Joe Hurst.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm basically just changing the flow of water from, I guess, east to west to south to north,
Okay.
I guess. Which there's already a culvert that goes underneath Mr. Anderson's driveway where I'm directing the water towards.
Okay.
So,
Good.
I have a question, I mean, the law of the land as it is right now is that the town board is the one that approves these. Why is that? isn't it? There you go. I mean, all right. I mean, that's the law. That's the code.
That's our
That's
code.
what we're here to do. And just, you
I
know,
think that preceded every one of us here, right?
1978.
Yeah.
1978. It preceded us being on the board, it didn't precede us living.
No,
Pretty close, 43 years. Yeah.
well, depends on what
Okay.
you're talking.
I just, and I asked that because obviously a lot of permits and stuff, is there any other type of permit in town that the board approves?
Well, you would, the idea of having a fill permit was probably originates from somebody improperly filling land that had an adverse effect on their neighbors. So at some point, it was developed that from now on, we're going to have a fill permit.
That makes sense, that makes
I think we
sense.
should talk about that during workshop at some point.
Yeah, and I don't wanna, it's getting late, I just,
Yeah, second things, gentlemen.
I was,
Yeah.
as long as we're all being inquisitive tonight, right? All right, well, I make a motion to approve the issuance of a fill permit, for 1210 Walboro.
Second.
Supervisor Clary?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
James, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait around for
Sure,
an hour
I
and 40
received-
minutes.
In the mail or pick it up at the town, how's this, what exactly are you next?
Yeah, you will be contacted by Mr. Corbett, and we'll be providing you with an actual physical permit.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Coming in.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, you too.
Take care. All right, last but not least, and this just came about in the last couple of days. Hooligans up there in Plaza, 5 Mile and Ridge, they're putting in a banquet room. And I love these guys, COVID, and hey, let's expand. I give them a lot of credit. Well, apparently when they go to expand in that, they have to go to the liquor authority, the state liquor authority, even though it's the same business, whatever, they're amending their.
It's not even an amendment, they're required by the state liquor authority to come in and basically get another permit because it's banquet room as opposed to the restaurant and bar that they now own. It's the same owner,
Right.
same premises, and the attorney reached out to me.
Charlie, you're better to
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
You really are.
These are pretty much, these 30-day notices are pretty perfunctory and pro forma. The attorney, and he called me, he said, you know, he said, I didn't do it because he said, we received the certificate, building certificate, we received, certificate of compliance, and we'd already had the prior approvals and the prior license. He said it just didn't occur to me that we had to apply for a second time, but he said the liquor authority said we did. So anyway, that's where we are. And he came to me and asked if we would waive it, and I said I didn't see any reason why not, but I said it should be run by the town board, and I talked to Dolly about it, and the two of us both talked, you talked to the attorney as well, correct?
Yes.
And anyway, I see no reason why we can't do it. This is, it's a known entity, there's absolutely no reason why we would deny this.
All right. You want to make the motion? Or anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I'll move that we waive 30-day notice to the town of Webster for on-premises alcohol and beverage license for Hooligans East Side Grill.
Second.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Supervisor Clary?
Aye. I don't really, I mean, it's getting late. People called in, unless anybody here has anything else to say, of utmost importance, I'm thinking we shut down tonight's meeting after an hour. Charlie?
You may, well, no, you just may want to notify people that we're not going to have a workshop next week.
Very good point. Actually, there will be no town board workshop on April 22nd. Next Thursday, there will be no town board workshop. And depending upon any topics that come up, we are not planning one for the 5th Thursday, April 29th. We take the 5th Thursday off. I would say that most likely the next town board meeting will be go. So, anybody else? Val? Ready to go home? All right. This meeting is adjourned.